we'll go through two scenarios, right? So let's say, for example, you work with a firm, right, where all your data is currently stored on Excel sheets, and you're looking to migrate to a database, right? How do you go about moving this data from the Excel sheets to the database? So we'll go through that scenario. And then once we're done with that, we'll also look at trying to create tables, right, from queries. And the tables will create, right? That's what we'll use for um, a few of our SQL demos. So two scenarios, right? First scenario, you're trying to migrate data from Excel sheets to an SQL database, right? And we all know that Excel sheets, Google sheets, there are limitations, right? Once the data grows to a certain extent, sheets will not work very well, right? Excel sheets, you have like data limits, 1 million rows plus and stuff like that. And once data gets very large, right, Excel tends to become very slow to help you work with your data, right? So it's best to move to a system that can help you work with that data better. And that's where database comes into play. So typically how it works is that, right, firms at the initial startup phase, right, they might use Excel sheets, Google sheets to work, right? But as the business grows and then they generate a lot of data, we now have the need towards migrate to a database, both for performance and also security benefits, right? So these are reasons why you want to migrate data from Excel to SQL. So for this demo, right, we'll be using the Superstore sample data, which a couple of us are familiar with. So I'll come on to, let me share my full screen. So on this folder, right, you have three files, location.csv, and I'll open this up so you see what it looks like. So this is a CSV file, right, that has data for location, zip, city, state, and region. Then you also have an Excel workbook. This workbook has data for customers and orders. So orders, right, this is the facts table. This holds the actual transactions. While the other tables are dimension tables, right? So customer, for example, the dimension table. It gives information about the customers that bought items, right? So this is a customer table. This Excel sheet holds two tables, right? Orders and customer. Then lastly, you have product table on the text file, right? So currently, this is the data that your fictional firm works with. You're trying to migrate this data, right, from Excel, CSV, text files, right, into a database. So let's see how we can go about that. So you open up your SSMS, right? SSMS, that's this, right? I have, so this is my SQL Server Management Studio, right? So currently I want to make a database and I'll call this database DB Superstore, right? This will hold my Superstore data. So you can use the interface, right, or a query to make your database. With the interface, I simply right click and then click this option for new database. So I come to this, right click and database, click on this, right? And it opens up this tab where I can put in my database name. So I come on here, I'll call this DB underscore Superstore. And that's all right. I hit OK. And I have my database, right, created. So in ideal situations, right, you want to create what's called an entity relationship diagram, which we saw in the last section, right? Simply a diagram that shows how your tables are connected. And a good tool to help you do this, right, is a website called diagrams.net. So app.diagrams.net, right? When I open this up, so this is like a flowchart maker and online diagram software, right? So asking me to create a new diagram or open an existing diagram, right? I come on here and click new diagram, for example. So you have several tabs, basic, this is what I want, right? An entity shape diagram, this is what I want. So I could choose this, right? But then when you come on to software, right, you will see already existing diagrams that you can just edit to your use, right? So I'll come here and choose one of this. Just choose one that I can edit. I just click, let me choose this one. So I come here and click on create. So I need to save the file, right? I'll call this superstore ERD. Superstore ERD. Now save this. So I can go ahead to create this, right? So this is a sample, right? These are just random tables. But I know I have 4 tables, right? Which you have seen. You have the others table, you have product, you have location, and customers, 4 tables, right? So I'll just try to take off the tables I don't want. I want just 4 tables. I have one fact table and 3 dimension tables. So I'll try to have that. I'll delete all this, click on this, delete, click on this, delete, click on this, delete, click on this, delete. Just leave just 4 tables remaining. Let me see, take this off. Take all this stuff off, right? So I have just 4 tables left, 1, 2, 3, 4. The next thing now is to I had um, have just 4 tables left. So what I can do is to rename these, right? So have the actual name of my table and then structure it in the right way. So table name, I'll call this orders, right? That's my fact table, orders. And I also have, I have products. No, just a title. I'll call this products. I also have location. So I'll call this location, right? So this is how you create ERD diagrams, right? Location, and then I have customers. Yeah, cool. So as the person trying to build database, right? So you have to have like an understanding of how the data is structured, right? And personally, right, I know the other table is my fact table, and I have 3 dimension tables, products, location, and customers. So what we can do, we try to mirror what we have exactly, right? So I'll open this up. Let's look at the others table and see how it looks like. So others table, right? I have 12 columns, row ID, order ID, down to profit, right? So I'll replicate that also. So here, my primary key actually is the row ID. So other ID can occur multiple times, right? So my primary key here is the row ID. So I'll come on here to my diagram, right? And so this will be row ID, right? So you just come here, just name the whole columns, right? PK is primary key, right? So you put that there. And then for now, I'll just put all the column names. Then later we can try to put all the FK in the appropriate places. So order ID, order date, ship mode. Let's do that. So I have order ID. Then you have order dates, ship dates. So basically, you go through all the columns, right? Order dates. Then you have ship date also. So all the columns, you just name them. Ship date. And I also have ship mode, customer ID, postal code. Model, right? It's a simple diagram, but then you can see more advanced diagrams. So I have customer ID, postal code, product ID. So ship mode, customer ID, code, postal code. Then I have product ID also. Sales quantity, discount profits. Discount and lastly profits. That's all right. So I can take off this other one. I don't need them. Just delete all this. Is the other table. So the next one, let's do customer. Just two columns, customer ID, customer name. This, I just pick it up. Then location. So I have to open up the text file. This CSV for location. So this has four columns: zip code, city, um, zip code, city, state, region. And lastly, region. Cool. And lastly, I have product. So these in a text file. So five columns: product ID, product name, category. And I have category also. And I think I have subcategory. And lastly, I have segment. Right? We have our tables correctly named, right? So next thing now is to draw the proper connections. How are all these tables connected? So I know that orders, right, is linked to customers via the customer ID. So customer ID here and customer ID here, right? We'll link them via the similar columns. So I can insert shape, right? Let's do something like this. And I also know that zip code and postal code, right? That's how that is linked to location. So all these, right? If you don't know these, you need to ask possibly people who are more familiar with data to explain to you how they are all connected. But once you have that information, you can then draw the appropriate diagram. So I know that zip code, right, is connected to um, postal code here. Like this, produce independent. Okay, postal code to zip code, and then um, product ID to product ID here also. Let's duplicate this. So I think, let me see, zip code to postal code, and I have customer ID to customer ID, and I also have product ID to product ID. What else am I missing? So ideally, I should have a date table. I think this should work. No, that's clean as I wanted to be. So I think this works, right? So all these terms here, these are the foreign key, these are foreign key, these are foreign key, these are foreign key, foreign key. Yeah, cool. So I think this looks okay, right? This is a simple diagram. So what I can do is I'm done with this, right? This now is the diagram that shows how my model would look like, right? When I create my database, right, this is how it should look like. Order table, link to location, link to customers, link to products, right? This would guide me when I'm trying to update my data, right, in a database. So once I'm done with this, right, I can come onto file and then export this. So you can export as, right, as an image, PNG, JPEG, PDF, etc. I'll just use an image, right, as an image, diagram, export. So you can save to Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, GitHub, right? I'll save to my device. So I'll come on here and save it somewhere. Let me just save it. Let me see. Let me save it here. So, so this is my diagram. When I open it up, right, this is what it looks like. So it just shows what this is not the most elegant diagram, but then I'm trying to rush because of time. So this just showing the connections, right? Zip code to postal code, customer ID to customer ID, product to product, right? This works. So what I can do is do the actual insert to my database now, right? So I come on here, I have my DB Superstore, right? So I'm trying to insert an Excel file, a CSV file, and a text file. So in SSMS, right, to do this, I can try to use, I do a right click, right? Superstore, I do a right click on the database. Then you come down to tasks, right? Under tasks, you have several options. So when you look down the options, right? Let me zoom in. You see things like let me do it again. So you see things like import flat file, import data, export data, right? So you can import a flat file, which can be CSV text file. You can also import data, right? So let's try the import data option. Try to import an Excel file. Let's see what happens. We'll try this. So I click on import data. And it opens up this tab, right? SQL Server import and export wizard. So this is what helps us to import and export data, right? So I click on next. Let me zoom this in. This is the import and export wizard, right? So here is asking me my data source, right? Data source. So my source is an Excel file. So I'll come on to the drop down, right, at the top right, and I'll come on here and choose Microsoft Excel, right? You have several sources. I'll choose Microsoft Excel as my source. So I choose this option. And then it's asking me what for the Excel file path, right? So where in my laptop is this file located? So I'll come on to browse, right, at the right-hand side, click on browse. So I browse to the Excel file, right? So this is the folder where I have the file. Under migration, right, I have the file here. So this is my Excel file, right? Superstore data, XLXX. You know what? Let me just close this file before I do that. I'm not sure if I have any effects, but I'll just do that. So I open the Excel file, right? Open this up. So there's the file, right? The file path. And it's asking me for what? Excel version. So by default, it's showing me 27 to 2010, right? So the best practice, right? You come on here and choose the most recent Excel version. And currently, that's Microsoft Excel 2016. So even though you're on Excel 2019 or 365, etc., right? The file is on that kind of file. Just choose the most recent Excel version. That should work. So I'll choose 2016 as the option here. First row has column name. So if your first row, right, is the column name, you just check this box. So that will help you name the columns when it's imported. Once I'm done with this, right, bottom right, I click on next. So I can see an error saying what the operation could not be completed. OLDBC 16.0 provider is not registered on the local machine, etc., etc. So what I can try to do now is to open up this import and export wizard, right, as its own application and try to replicate this. So that worked for me when I did it. So what I can do now is instead of coming here to right click and go through that process, right, I'll come to my search bar. So once you install SQL Server, right, and SSMS, right, you have this tool, the import and export data wizard is also installed also. That's what we use, right, to import and export data. So I'll come to my search bar, I'll just type in imports, right? And you see, it just shows me what SQL Server 2017 imports and exports data, right? It's an app that's installed alongside SQL Server. So I'll open up this app now. I'll work with. So I open it up and you can see this window. The similar window is pops up, right? So I'm opening it outside SSMS now on its own. And let's see if this will work for us. So I click on next. Data source, right? Similar operation. I'll come on here and choose what Excel as my source. Excel as my source, right? Path. I'll browse to the path on my laptop. Superstore sample data. Excel version. I'll choose the most recent Excel version, right? 2016. And then I hit next. So this time around now, I didn't get any error, right? It goes to the next step. So the next step is asking me the destination. So I'm bringing data from an Excel file. Where do I want to copy this data to, right? Destination. So that's simply what from my database on SSMS, right? So I'll come on here, click on the drop down, and I'll scroll down to the option that says SQL Server Native Client 11.0, right? This is what I'll choose. So this is basically my SQL Server client. I'm trying to copy the data to SQL Server, right? So I come on here and choose this. No, 11.0, that's what I want. Server name, right? This is my server name, desktop XYZ. So use Windows or SQL Server, right? So with Windows, no need for a username or password. For SQL Server, you need to input the username and password, right? So I'll stick with Windows. This is my local machine. So database, right? I made a new DB for this task. I called it DB Superstore. So drop down, I'll choose that DB, right? DB Superstore. So I'll choose that. You can also make a new one, right? If you want to make a new one and then put it there. But I already made one already. Once I have this now, I click on next. So it brings up the next tab, right? So you say specify table, copy or query. So should I copy data, right, from one or more tables on my Excel sheets? Or should I write a query that will specify data I want to copy, right? So in this case, I want to copy all the data on all the Excel sheets and tables, right? So I'll choose the first option and I'll click on next. And now, right, this shows me tables, right, that are currently on what? That are currently on the tables are currently on the Excel file, right? Customers and others. So I choose this and choose this, right? And you can look, right, this is my source, customers, others, right? This destination. So DBO, that's a schema, right? Dot customers. So I'm saving the customers and others tables, right, to the DBO schema in the Superstore database. And this is what I want exactly, right? So here you can also click on a table, right, and edit these mappings. So for example, customers, right, I can try to edit the data types, etc., right? So currently customer ID, right, is showing as what's NVARCHAR and nullable, right? You can allow null values. If I want to, I can uncheck this box, for example, right? Shouldn't allow null values. Same thing here to customer name. I could change data type, right? Something else. Maybe put different data type. I'll leave all that, right? This is a demo. Do everything like this. Hit OK, right? For others also, similarly, you could come here, click on others, and edit mappings also, and change the data type, right? The size, etc. if you want to. So I'll cancel all this. You can also preview a table, and you see what it looks like, right? So click on this, then you click on preview, right? Preview here, and it will show you a preview of the table. So this is a preview, right, of what it looks like. So you see row ID, order ID. So this is telling me, right, what I want to do. Should I run the copy procedure immediately, right? So this checked, right? Okay, you also have the option to save this package, SSIS package, but I don't need this. This is all I need, right? One immediately. So I click on the next step, next, and it tells me to what? Click finish to perform the operations, right? So when I run this operation, right, it will copy rows from the Excel file customer table to what? It will make a new table on SQL Server called customers, and then put data there, right? Same thing also, it will make a new table called orders and copy data from what the Excel sheet orders, right? So I click on finish, and let's see what happens now. So you can see, right, it's one of the processes, data flow, task connections, etc., validating, executing, right? Copying success, copying success. So copy 793 rows and 9,994 rows. So let's confirm and see if this worked correctly, right? So I come back to my SSMS, right? DB Superstore. We just made it newly, right? Let's check the tables and see if anything is there now. So I open this up. I can see where I have my tables, customer table and others table. Let's see if this contains data. So I click on this, right click, select top 1,000 rows. And we can see, right, we have data, customer ID, customer name, right? So this worked correctly. Others also, the same drill, top 1,000 rows. I can see the same thing, so right, row ID down to profit. So this looks correct. So we have two more files, right? The CSV file and text file. So let's do for that also. So for those two files, right, I don't need to use the import and export window. I can just right click, right? Previously, we came to tax and went to import data. Now I'll choose import flat file, right? So flat file, the examples are text files, CSV files, right? So I'll choose import flat file. So I click on import flat file, and this opens up the window, right? So to import data, I've given you some tips, right? Put the inputs and preview, etc. So I'll just put it to the next step. Click on next. So it's asking me for the location of my file, right? So where's the file located? So I come on here, browse, and I'll go to my folder, right? So I have two files. Let me go to the actual folder for SQL migration, right? So I have CSV file and text file, right? So I'll go with the CSV file first. I'm trying to choose both, but it's just one at a time. So I'll choose the CSV file first, right? And hit open. So this is a file, right? My table, what my table be called? Location, that works correctly, right? Schema, DB, yeah, that works correctly. So I go on to the next step, right? Data preview. This is a preview, right? Zip, column, city, state, and region, right? So this looks accurate. Next step, modify column. So I can change type. I can make a column to be primary key, right? So here I think zip is a primary key. So I'll make this primary key, right? Allow nulls, no, for example. And then I can go on to the next step. Summary, right? So this is what it's trying to do. On this server, this DB, make a table called connection, right? Then I hit finish. So it says successful, right? So I close it. And I come on to my database, right? Currently, I can't see the location table, so I need to refresh. Right click and refresh this. Right click, what's happening? And refresh this, right? Tables now. I can now see what the location table is now here, right? So I can do the same thing, location, right click and select top 1000 rows. And this work, right? You can see zip, you can see city, you can see state and region. So this worked correctly, right? So the same drill for the last table. So I right click, I go on to tasks, right? And import a flat file. So import flat file, right? And this time I'll bring in the this text file, right? So browse. Now choose a product of text file. Just the same thing, right? Next, next, next. I'll make product ID the primary key. Allow nulls. Don't allow nulls, yeah. So next, finish. Success, right? So I should, when I refresh it, I should see products here also. Right, refresh, open up tables, and then you see products, right? Top 1000 rows. And you can see all the products, right, correctly imported. So product ID, product name, down to segments, right? This looks accurate. So from our last section, right, a database is what? Tables that are connected together. Currently, we have 4 tables, but they are not connected. They are just individual standalone tables. Until we connect them, then they can now act as what? Database, right? So at this point, we need to create connections between them. So using our ERD diagram as a guide, right? The diagram again. My diagram, right? So I don't know. Cool. So location, right? Zip code to what? Postal code. Postal code is my foreign key, right? So actually, you can make foreign key with queries, right? Or you can also use the interface, right? So I already went through that in the last section. So for this, I'll just use I think a query will be faster, but I'll just do I'll do the first with an interface, then do the rest of the query. So what I can do is a command to my SQL Server Management Studio. So I want to link location, right, with others table. Remember, right, in location, the primary key is the zip code, right? Zip code and postal code are the same thing. Postal code exists in the others table as a foreign key, right? To make the connection, I'll go to the foreign key column. That's postal code and others table, right? That's where I'll go to. So I'll come on to products. I'll come on to the foreign key column. That's postal ID, postal code, right? I'll come on here and right click. So notes, we didn't set primary keys when we made this table, right? So we can also fix that also. So postal code, right click. I'll come on to, let me zoom in so you see what I'm doing very well. So others table, right? I come on to the foreign key column, that's postal code. I'm trying to link others to location, right? And they are connected by what? Zip code to postal code, right? Zip code is primary key on location. Postal code is foreign key on others. So I'll come to the foreign key column, right? Which is postal code. I'll right click and modify, right? So click on modify. And it opens up this tab where I can see all the columns, right? So first things first, I'll just set this as primary key. Row ID, right click, primary key. That's what I'll do first. So now for postal code, right, I want to make it as a foreign key. So I'll come to postal code, click on it, then right click. And I'll come down to relationships, right? I want to create relationships. So I click on relationships. And currently, there are no relationships, right? I need to create one. So I'll click on add, right? Add a new one. So I add a new relationship. And it brings up this tab, right? On this tab, I'll come down to tables and column specification. So I click on this. And towards the right-hand side, you see these ellipses, right? So I choose ellipses and it's showing my primary key table. So we've set the primary key, right? From our diagram. Let me go back to my diagram. For my diagram, right? The primary key is what? Is zip code. You can see it here, right? Primary key is what? Zip code as the primary key. And the foreign key is what? Postal code, right? So primary key table is location. Primary key is what? Zip code. Foreign key is what? Others table, right? Postal code. So using this, right? That's what we'll try to create our connection with. So back to FSMS. Primary key table is what? Location, right? Primary key is location table. And what's the column called? It's called zip code. So zip. Foreign key is what? Others, yeah. And the column is called what? Postal code, right? Zip to postal code. They're the same thing, just different column names. But the same thing as in there. That's okay. So I hit OK, right? Okay. Crazy. So for this demo, right, I was just trying to show us examples, but currently, let me see. So postal code is float. Let me see what zip code is. Location, right? Click. Click on modify. Zip code is int. Okay. So I can make this float also. Let's use int for 12 then. So int for this. Let's make this one int also. I click and save. So I have to drop the table and recreate it again. Crazy. This is what table, other table. So it's postal code. Let's see. Other zip is int here. And then for location, the sign. This is int. Other. And then postal code is int also. Okay, let's see. Let's try it again, right? So other table, I come on to postal code, right? Click relationships. Maybe let's just add a new one, right? Tables and classifications, ellipsis. So other table, primary key is location, and that's what's the zip column. Foreign key is others, and that's the postal code column. Okay, everything. Is postal code. Yes, postal code again. Save location. Come back to location. So orders to location, zip, and then postal code. So I close this, then right click, and then save. So that's how you should do it, right? It should work. We did this in the last section. But then, because of their different data types, it's giving me that error. So that's how it works. So I'll need to drop the table, but I don't do that because of time. So currently, let me see orders is in location. Let's take this off. Yeah. Mhm. You know what? Let me just do it. So location. Okay. Let me delete this. Let me bring it back. So I go back to, I think location was in the Excel file, right? So I'll open up my import and export wizard and just do it one more time quickly. Right, it was an Excel file and these are file data this latest one 2016 next source 11.0 base database superstore next. So we want just the location table. That's what I want. Okay, this one is in the CSV file actually, not this. You don't need all this. That's on the CSV file. Yes. So I come on here to my database, superstore, right click, tasks, import flat file. Then I go on to next location. That's the location CSV file. That's right. So now we just try to change the we change the column for zip right to float. So it'll be the same data type. Because the issue was that different data types, we're trying to combine them together, it's not working right. So that's what we'll try to do now. So next, so here zip right, instead of int now, put it as float, right? As float. That way I can now combine it to others very well. So next, right? Close. So now, when I refresh this now, this is now added. So refresh, and now have location added when I open the tables up. Yeah, location, right? So when I check this now, right? Design, you can now see that this is now float, right? And when I compare it with others, right? Others design. So zip column, where's it? Where's postal code? Sorry. This float also, right? Postal code. So this postal code, right? Float type. Same thing with location, right? Zip is float type. We're trying to combine link zip, right? And what postal code together. If it's different types, they will not work, right? And you have to change the types at the point of creating the table. Afterwards, you can't change it again. So that's the issue we had. So let's try to create the connection now again. Right. So postal code, I come here to right click on relationships, and add, right? I come on to tables and classification ellipsis. I click on this, right? And it opens up this tab. Primary key is what? Location table, right? Foreign key is other table. What's a column? Here is what zip. Here is what postal code, right? I can now create the connection. Okay. Let me see. The column in table location do not match an existing primary key or unique content. So let's make this a primary key first. Okay. Primary key location, foreign key others. Then this zip and this postal code. Okay. So this has worked, right? So we didn't make the zip the primary key initially, because that's the end goal. Primary key is a foreign key. So it's not a primary key now. It's not connected, right? So I can close this and then I come on here. So when you check others, right, currently, go to columns, right? So pay attention to the postal code column, right? Postal code is currently what's normal. But we just made a connection now, right? So when I come on here and save that change, right? Yes. So I come to the step and refresh it. Refresh. When I open this up now, you can now see what's this key, this key item, right? This key postal code F key. It means what is now what's a foreign key, right? And it's linked to what the location table. So we went through this in the last section after MK foreign key. So similarly, right, from our diagram, we can see that all that is linked to customers also, customer ID, and products, product ID, right? So let's go back to the FSMS. I'll just confirm this is customer stable design. Let's see the column type. This N voucher. Let's check others. Customer ID, N voucher, the same type, so it should work, right? So I'll come on here, right click, set primary key. So I'll go to the foreign key, right, which is the customer ID here. That's the foreign key. So I'll come onto this foreign key here, right click, and I'll go to relationship, the same drill, right? Tables, ellipses. My primary key is what's the customer table, right? Customer ID column. Foreign key is others and customer ID column also. Once I have this now, I can hit OK, right? So customer ID, I can hit OK. Right, close this, right click and save. Yes. So when I come on to the others table, right? Currently, we can see only postal code has that key icon, right? When I refresh this now, refresh this, I now have what's all the columns of customer ID has the key icon also, right? The foreign key also. So this is now what's updated, right? So I have to let me open up the keys, that's right. So others, location, and you also have customer key also, right? Connected to. So I have two of them now. So I think it's remaining just one now, which is products to others. So let's do that. Let me confirm the data types. Currently, product ID here is NVACA. Let me check the products table and see if it's the same thing. Yeah, NVACA, the same type, right? So it should work easily. So I'll come on to others also. But you know what? Let's do this with a query. So in the last section, right, we went through how to create this with a query. So use the author table, right, and then you put all those values. Let's try this with a query and see I'll achieve that. So I'll come onto my DB, right click and make a new query. And I'll run my query here, right? So for this, the query we did yesterday, right? Alter table. And then you put your foreign key, right? So you're trying to create between two tables, right? The foreign key is others table. The primary key table is the products table, right? Product ID on others linked to product ID on products, right? So alter table. And the syntax, right? What we saw yesterday, right? The syntax, you have to what? Put in the foreign key table here, right? So my foreign key table, that's the others table. So I'll type in others here, right? And then next, we put a term that says what? Add constraints, right? Add constraints. And then next, you have your foreign key table, which is others, right? Then you put an underscore. Then you put the foreign key column name, right? And our column name is called product ID, right? So to confirm, open it up, right? Columns is called product ID, product space ID, right? But it's actually best practice to have your columns. You name them with spaces between them, right? So instead of having spaces, what you can do is you use underscores, right, to name them. So I can put an underscore right between this. For example, yeah, that work, right? So others, right? I'll call the column product ID with underscore ID. So that extra space can affect when you're trying to work with queries. And I'll put a keyword, right? FK. And the next thing is to put the word that says foreign key. Foreign key. And then next thing I want to do is open up a parenthesis, right? And here we'll type in the foreign key column name. That's product ID. And that's called ID. Right. The next thing I want to do is put the keyword by references. I'm creating a reference, right? The foreign key reference. My primary key table is what's the products table. So I'll type in products here. And next I'll put the column, primary key column name, right, in parentheses. So let's check the table. I think we also need to update that column also to have, so products, I'll come on here, columns, let me see. So product ID also at underscore. Okay, that works. So I'll come on here and put in the name here, product ID, underscore ID, close this, right? So that's a query, right? So the same thing we just did now, right? With the interface, this is how you try to set what connections, right? Between a primary key table and foreign key table, right? So here I'm trying to what? Create a connection between the others table and products table, right? And what are the columns I'm trying to work with? The product ID column in the others table and the product ID column in the products table, right? So let's run this. So currently, right, when you check the others table, right, you can see that what the product ID has no key. There's no key icon here, right? So let's create this connection now. Let's run this query and see what happens. So I come on here and run this query, execute. Cannot find the object others. DPO. Others. I see got a dollar sign at the end of it. Let's try to rename this. Rename this. So I take a dollar sign. Okay, I think that's the reason. So let's run this again now. So it's telling me that there's no object called orders. So I think it's because of the dollar sign at the end of it, right? Let's do the same for customers also. Yes, we named this. So let's run this query now and see what it gives me. So I zoom in and run the query. Another issue. So let's go to product table and make product the primary key first. So we'll do this, the design, the primary key here, and wrapper. Add constraint, the others, add constraints, others product ID. And let's see, the underscore ID, that's correct. Reference, primary key table, primary key column. Okay, I also chat NCAP 55 and NCAP 255. Let's see. So this is NCAP 50, and then there's product ID NCAP 50. And for the others table, product ID is NCAP 255. Okay, I think that's the issue. So I think ideally, right, when you're trying to make an actual table, you take your time to put the data types, the proper manner, right? But I was just trying to just show it them quickly, so I didn't go through all those stuff. But then this should work correctly, right? So once you have the exact data type, so this is NCAP 50. But then for the other table, right, product ID here is NCAP 255. So it's telling me that what these two columns, they don't have the same length, right? The same length or scale. And for that, I can't create that connection. So I need to have the exact kind of data type and length, right? Before I can now create that connection. So ideally, when I run that, right, it should work. But I'll just keep this. This is the query used to create a connection. So in this case, right, in actual sense, what you do is you try to what, drop the table and then recreate it with the actual data type and fix the issue. These are normal things you encounter when doing this in the real world, right? You have errors, you debug it, find the issue, and try to fix it, right? I won't go through that because of time. I think I'll show you an example. I try to make location table again, right? So in the real world, right, you try to what, drop the product table and recreate it again, right? This time now you pay attention to what data type and try to fix it, right? Have the exact type with what the product ID here also, the exact type and length, and then recreate it and it should work. So let's assume that we're done with our connections, right? So currently, location, customer, and others, right, are connected. We couldn't connect products because of the issue we just faced, right? So let me try to run a query, right, that combines data from what others and location, and let's see if it works. So I'll just clean this off. So I can do a simple select star, right, from others, right? And then I'll join location. On so OL, join location L on O dot. So how is other than disconnected, right? Via the postal code and the zip code, right? So O dot postal code. That's postal. Crazy, crazy, crazy. A lot of things being do correctly, right? Ideally, right? All this stuff you put underscore between all those columns, right? So that way, when you're trying to code them here, you don't have spaces between names. That's not how we work with SQL. So postal underscore code, right? And then, so let's start from other equal to L dot. So I think here it's called zip. I don't think it's called zip. Location, it's called zip. Columns, yeah, zip, L dot zip. So here what I'm saying, right, is that what choose all the data, right, from the others table, and then join location, right, on what the similar columns they have, right, postal code and zip. So let's run it and see what happens. So you can see, right, this is what row ID or that this is just showing data for what all the others table, right, and then profit. When you suppose to the right, you now see what continuation, right? So you have what data for what the location table. This is zip now, right? This city, this state, and this region, right? So using the query, I can now what join data from what location and zip, right? And I can see the information between these two tables. This is now a database, right? But you can see that we couldn't join the products to others, right? Because of the issue we had with the data types. Let's try to do the same thing now. Here now, I'll join products. Let's see if it will work. So join products, right? Let's start from others, join products. I'll call this alias P on O dot product ID, product underscore ID equals P dot product ID. Right. So I execute this. So 4-1001798. You can see similarly, right? You're able to get data. So here you can see this data for row one, this other ID, right? Product ID, 4-ball. And this is where the others ends, right? Profits. You can now see the product table, this product ID, this product name, this category, subcategory, and then segments, right? And you can also join multiple tables together, right? So join products on this. And I can also join more tables, right? Join, let me do customer. See. So how does customer join to these tables, right? Customer and others, they join on the customer ID. So O.customer ID equals C.customer ID. Yeah, that would be underscore ID. Yes. Same with the other tables. It has to be underscore ID. So all these are best practices. When trying to create columns, we use this format underscores between them. Then I can execute this. So now I've joined 3 tables together, right? Others, that's profit here, right? When you scroll now, this is what this is the product table, right? Down to segments. And when you scroll, you can see what's customer, like customer ID and customer name, right? So now we have a database where we can join tables together, right, using queries. So this is how this is useful, right? When you're trying to work on personal projects, maybe data is in Excel sheets, right? But you want to work with a database, You try to what, create a DB and then try to upload it to what, from Excel sheets, right, to database. You can now try to recreate your project, right, from a database, maybe connect with Python or with Power BI or Tableau and carry out your analysis, right? So we have a similar data set, right? But this time now is on text files as queries, right? So let me open up this files. You have this text files that contains actual queries. Yeah, this. So this queries, right, they've been pre-built. So if you look at this, right, this is trying to create a table called web events, right? And then make 4 columns: ID column, integer, not null, primary key. A column called account ID. Let me make it, let me zoom in also. Right, so this query, right, you already have queries that are pre-built. This query is trying to make a table called web events, ID column, right? So it's saying make a table called web events. In this table, add a column called ID with integer type. It should be not null and make ID the primary key, right? Make another column called account ID, it should be integer. Another column called or called at, it should be date time. Another column called channel, it should be varchar 50, right? And you can see how these columns that have 2 or more words, right? You have an underscore between them, separating them. This way you can use them in queries easily, right? But when you have spaces between them, it would affect how you work with the queries. And now you're not trying to insert into this table, right? Insert into this table values, this, insert into these values, just like that, right? So when you scroll down, you see another table. So I think you're making about 5 tables, right? Web events, orders, etc. Right? So in some instances, you can have a table as a query. You want to make your table, right, via a query. And yesterday's section, right, we saw an example where we made a table from a query and put values in it. But that was a small table, right? But today, we want to make a large table, right? So you have all the queries, they're already pre-written, right? These are that table again. So you have create table, right, called region, right? And in this table called region, you have what, a column called ID, integer type, not null primary key, right? Then you have another column called name, varchar type 50, right? And then insert into region. It's a small table, right? Just four rows of data. So insert into region values. The first row, ID will be 1 northeast. Second row, ID will be 2 midwest. Third row, ID is 3, name is southwest, right? And fourth row, ID is 4, name is west, right? Just like that. So that's the second table, right? Then you have also make table called orders, right? The same drill. Create table, columns, and data types, right? Make ID primary key. And insert into this table, right? That's how it works. So these are all queries, right? What we'll do is just copy all this stuff. So I'll copy everything here, right? I'll copy everything here and then paste it to SQL Server and run the query. But first things first, we'll make a DB for this, right? So I'll come on to SQL Server and let's make a database, right, for this data I want to put in. So I come on here. So these are DB Superstore. Let's make one more DB. Right, new DB. And I'll call these DB underscore patch and posy. So this data for a sample paper company, right? So I hit OK and it's created, right? So here now I'll make a new query on this database. So I come to this database, right? I right click on the database and choose new query. So anything I run on this database, right, it would affect this database, right? Anything I run here now, like the database. So I go back to my query and I copy everything here, right? Control A, Control C. So I come onto this div I created, right? I paste that query here. So I paste that query here, right? And now I want to run this query to make all those tables. So it's a pretty large query, right? Pretty large, long. So I've shown you how the sample table looks like, right? We're making about 5 tables, I think. So you have web events, column name, data type, primary key, etc., right? So let's run this and see what it gives us. So I'll come on here and execute this. So it might take some time, right? Because it's a very long query. So basically, we are creating tables, inserting data into them, right? So I think it's done running, right? So you can see it's made some changes, right? Were affected. Let's open up this database, Fetch and Cozy, and see what it looks like. So I come to tables, and you can see he has made 5 tables, right? DBO accounts, DBO orders, DBO region, sales rep, web events, right? So what I can do is come to accounts, for example. Let's see what it contains. Right click, top 1,000 rows, right? So you can see ID, name, website, latitude, longitude, all this stuff, right? It was created from this stuff we just ran, right? That what the query did. It tried to create these tables, create columns, and insert values into them. These accounts, right? And these orders too. The same way, right? Right click and choose top 1,000 rows. So you can see, right? Same thing too. It creates columns and puts values into them, right? So you're able to make 5 tables, right? Accounts, orders, region, sales reps, and web events. Um, just to confirm, were you guys seeing the text file I was showing previously?
I think at some point the screen was not refreshing, but now I can see it actually. But then there was a time I wasn't seeing any.
Okay. So apologies for that. I was explaining stuff saying. So this is a text file, right? That I got stuff from this text file. So this is a scenario whereby possibly data you want to recreate, right, is in a text file. You have actual queries. These are actual queries, right? SQL code in a text file. So when you run this code, right, this saying, for example, create a table called web events, and then make it so this first part, right, it says table called web events. In this table, add a column called ID and make it integer type. It should be not null. Make it the primary key, right? Make another column called account ID, integer type. Another column called that date time type. Another column called channel, right? Varchar 50, right? And this column means that what this query ends here, right? So the first part is what make a table. The next step now is to what insert data, right, into this table, right? That's this here. And these are the values, right? Value in the first row, right? This one now is what the ID. This 1001 is what the account ID, right? This 2015 dates is what they occurred at, right? This time. And this direct is what the channel. So that's the first row, right? The same drill, right? Second row, third row, till you get to the end of this query, right? And you have several other tables. So this query ends, right? When you scroll down, you have a lot of rows. After this, right? You now have what the next table somewhere around here, sales rep, right? So this is where this query ends, right? For web events here. The next table is now made now. Create table called what? Sales rep, right? So let me zoom in. Create sales rep, the same way, right? Make these columns ID, name, and region. Then insert these columns now into sales rep, right? So the first row, right, the ID will be what? This. Second row, right? So the first row, sorry, name will be what? Samara Singh, right? Region ID will be what? 1, right? Just like that. Second row, the same thing. So this, just like that till the end. The next table is not made the same way, just like that, right? So in this instance now, right, your query is already pre-written for you, maybe by someone that's trying to, maybe data engineer or someone that's trying to give you that to create, right? It's done already. Or you just copy this data, right? Like I copied everything here now, right? It's been pre-written. I copied it and brought it here, right? So I pasted in this query editor, right? I put everything here and ran the query, right? And it made all those tables and put in all those values. That's why now I now try to validate, right? So I try to check the first table, right? That's accounts table. And this data, right? ID name down to sales rep ID. I checked for the other table also, right? The same drill too. Same drill too, right? ID down to amount USD, right? And you have 5 tables: accounts, orders, region, sales rep, and web events. So here, right, for this table, there's the ARD diagram for this table. So this shows you, right, how you're meant to create your connections, right? So here, web events is linked to accounts, right? Primary key to foreign key. Accounts is linked to orders, right? ID to account ID, right? Sales rep is linked to what? Accounts. ID to sales rep ID. And lastly, right, region to sales rep, right? Region ID to region ID. So with this now, right, you can create a connection using either the query or the interface method, right? So I think we'll quickly run through that and we'll wrap up here for today. So 1, 2. This is what we've done previously, right? So like I said earlier, right? First things you come to I'll work with the editor for one. The rest I'll use the query, so it's faster. So I come on here, right? The foreign key is what? Account ID. Primary key is what? ID in the accounts table, right? So you go to the foreign key of event. That's where you go to.
We can't see the screen currently. We are not seeing your. The only thing we are seeing now is the copied queries.
What's happening? What's happening?
Maybe you're not. We can see it now.
Okay, cool. Okay, let me track back a bit now. So this is the ARD diagram, right? For the tables we just created, right? So this query is on this text file, right? I copied it. I took it towards this view here, right? I put it here, right? And ran the queries. And it made these 5 tables, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Created the columns and put all those values into the tables, right? And that's what I try to check here. So I check the accounts table, for example, and I can see that what the columns were created correctly and the values are also putting there correctly, right? Same thing here too. This for the orders table, right? So the columns are created, and I can see the values are also correct. They are putting there correctly, right? So it checks out. So now we want to create like the connections, right, between these tables. So primary key, foreign key, just like that, right? So now I'll do the first connection with the editor, right? But the rest I'll use queries to do them, so it's faster. So the first thing you do, right, you go to the foreign key column. So I want to make the first one web events to account. The foreign key is what? Account ID, right? And the primary key is what? The ID in the accounts table. So I'll go to the web events table and go to the account ID column, which is the foreign key. So I come onto this, right? And I'll go into the web events table, which is this, right? Right click, or I can go to the actual columns. I go to account ID, right? I think that's it now, account ID, right? Just to confirm. Yeah, account ID, yeah, that's true. So I'll come into account ID here, right? Right click and then modify. So I come to account ID. I do a right click, right? Come to relationships. I click on what's add, right? Let's make a new one. Click on add. So add this, and then I click on what's tables and classification, right? Ellipses. And here I can what primary key is what the accounts table, right? Look at the diagram, right? Primary key was where you have PK. That's what the accounts table is big primary key, right? ID in the accounts table. Foreign key is what FK is what account ID, right? So that's what we're trying to replicate here. So primary key is the accounts table, and the column is called what ID, right? ID, account ID. Foreign key events column here is called what account ID. So account ID to account ID, right? I hit OK. I close this, right? I come on here, I do a right click and save the change. Yes. And now you can see now when I come to this table, right, and refresh it. You can see that what the account ID now has what the foreign key is now shown there, right, correctly. For the rest, I will use that query we did earlier, just update it with the appropriate values. There's that query again. There's a query around just now. Oh, I think I took it off. Let me see. Yeah, there's it. Oh, just copy this, right? And then I'll update it with the correct values and just run it. So I'll come on to database patch and fuzzy, make a new query. So here, right, you see my diagram, I can update this, right? So let's do for accounts and others. For account and others, right, the foreign key here, right, from what we can see, foreign key is what account ID in the others table, while the primary key is what ID in the accounts table, right? So let's note foreign key table is what, look at the line, right? This line here, right? This line here, this line here, right? FK, that's the foreign key, right? So the table that FK is on, that's the foreign key table. Others, right? Primary key table is what accounts, which has ID. So ID to accounts table. So with that, I can now use this to create my connections. So I come on to my query, right? Foreign key table others, primary key table accounts, right? Let's know that. So where you have others, right? This is the foreign key actually. So I'll call these others, and then others, right? But in this example now, our foreign key column is called account ID, right? Account ID. And then foreign key, right, is called account ID also. Account ID. And here, our primary key table is called accounts with an S. And the column, right, primary key column is called what? ID, right? So we can run this now. So this is the foreign key table others. Foreign key table, foreign key column, right? Foreign key column, account ID, and then primary key table and primary key. So I can run this. Let's see what it gives me. So it says commands completed successfully, right? So let's check and see if you update. So I'll go on to the others table. So you can see account ID now has the foreign key column, right? So it worked correctly. So let's do for the next one. This faster compared to the other method. So I have accounts table and sales rep table, right? When you look at this line here, right, FK is what sales rep ID on the accounts table. So it means that what our foreign key table is what is the accounts table. Primary key table is sales rep. And the column name on the foreign key table is called what? Sales rep ID. Here is called what? ID, right? So using that, I can make my table also. Just update this, right? These accounts, right? Accounts is a foreign key table here. So I'll call it accounts. Accounts. And then accounts table. And this sales rep ID. That's foreign key column name, sales underscore rep underscore ID. And foreign key is what's the same thing, right? Sales underscore rep underscore ID. And then our primary key table is called what? Sales rep, right? Let me confirm that just to be sure. This sales reps with an S or top an S. So it's called sales reps with an S. Okay. So I'll put an S at the end, right? An ID. So let's run this and see what it gives us, right? This is our query. This. So I run this query, execute. What's the error it's giving me?
You have 2 underscores in the
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
In the other one, to the upper one, the foreign key.
Yeah, cool. So let's run it again and see. It should work now. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Connect for that. So it worked correctly, right? So let's confirm the accounts table, right? Sales rep ID. That's the foreign key column. So I check here, columns, and you can see, right? It has the foreign key column now. So one last one, then we'll wrap up. So let's do for let's do region, right? Sales rep to region. So for this, right? If you look at this, you can see that was the foreign key is what the region ID, right? So our foreign key table is a sales rep table. Primary key table is the region table, right? So with this, we can easily do our update the query correctly. So I come back here and do the update. So my foreign key table, right? That's what I'll put here. That's simply sales rep. And here, right? Sales rep and S, sorry, S at the end. Same thing here too. Sales reps. And the column is called region ID. Region ID. And SA. Sales reps underscore region ID. Yeah. And the foreign key column, right? Same thing to region ID. And the column, the primary key column is called region table, and ID, right? Just to confirm. Right, region ID, primary key region ID, right? That's correct. So I come back here and run the query. Right, execute this. And it worked correctly, right? So if I go onto the sales rep table, I should see that the region ID column has that key. Yeah, so it worked correctly, right? Region ID has the foreign key. So now all these tables are connected together, right? I can come on here and run select star, for example, from others, right? Alias O. I can join accounts, for example, accounts A on O dot account ID equals A dot ID. I can join. So how do I know I'm joining? Right, I already understand the hierarchy of the database, right? So when you look at database, for example, right, join sales reps. When you look at the hierarchy of the database, right? If I'm trying to join accounts to others, I will join based on what's the primary key to foreign key connection. So accounts ID and others account ID, right? That's how I will join these two tables together, right? Accounts ID join to what others account ID. So if you look at my query here, right, you see that was the same drill. I'm joining them on what? Others, O is others account ID, right? Accounts.id. So that's what I'm trying to join them by, right? So using a diagram, it will help you to know how to join and pull the required data you're trying to analyze. So the same thing, right? I'm joining sales reps. I know that what for my diagram, right? Sales reps is linked to accounts. Sales reps linked to accounts, right? Accounts and sales reps are linked via sales rep ID and sales rep ID, right? So I'll come back to my diagram and do the same way. So join sales reps on. So I'll give this an alias S. That way, I'm going to type in the full table name subsequently. So sales reps alias S on. So sales rep S dot ID is equal to accounts A dot sales rep ID, right? And I can join others. I can join regions. For example, join region, right? Alias R on r.id. So region is joined to sales rep, right? We have the region ID, S dot region ID, for example. So when I run all these, right, you see that what you pull data from what others, accounts, sales rep and region, right? That's what you can see. So you can see that what from ID, right, down to amount USD. These are all the other table. ID down to what amount USD, right? This is the other table. So it ends here, right? This ends here. Next, now you have what the accounts table, right? From ID name, right? I look at accounts, right? ID name down to what the syrup ID. And when I scroll, right, when I scroll to the right, you see that what these where the accounts table stops, right? And next you now have what the sales rep table, right? ID, and you scroll, right? ID name, region ID, right? That's sales rep. Then lastly, region, you now have what's the region ID and the region name, right? You're able to join all these columns together, right? So it means that what our joining worked correctly, right? So this is how you can create database, right? Either from Excel file, text file, CSV file, right? Or you could use creating queries to also create your tables, right? Database. So I think time is fast spent. So at this point, right, have any questions, you could type in the chat or raise your hand before we wrap up. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. Please, I can see that we have a duplicate like column names, like the ID repeated.
Yeah.
And so is there any way to handle that, or wouldn't it be an issue?
Yeah. So for that, right, I can specify the content I want to bring in. So we didn't go into that, right? Now it's just trying to create your tables and collections. But for example, I could say I want to see just the account ID from others table and see just the, okay, let's work with the column names now. So from others, I want to see just the account ID, for example. So instead of star means all, right? I will say what, bring in what, just the others. So others, instead of writing others, right? I'll use the alias O. In SQL, right? Table name. I then type in what O. I'm saying that what subsequently, right? Instead of using the full name, I can use O to represent what this table name, right? Anywhere you see O, it means what others table, right? So others.account ID, it means what the account ID in the others table, right? So I'll say bring in the others.account ID, right? And I can say, so let me just move this down. I can say also bring in from the accounts table, bring in the account name, for example. So this accounts table, right? Bring in the name. So I'll say what bring in this way. So I'll say bring in what A does name, right? And then I'll say from the sales reps table, right? Bring in the sales rep name, for example. So I'll say what's S dot name. But I have name, right? Name. So it might clash. So I'll give an alias also, right? I'll say what as accounts name, right? And here I'll say what as, oh, you know what? Let me just run it normally. So you see what I'm trying to show you if I make the updates. So I'll just take it off. And lastly, I'll say bring in the region name, right? So let me see region table. So you have region ID and name also. So I'll say what's r dot name, right? So now instead of star all, I specified it. I want to see the words account ID, account name, sales rep name, and region name. Just these 4 tables. I want to see it's 4 columns only, right? So let's run this now and see what how it will look like. So I run this. This account ID, right? This account name, this sales rep name, and this region name. But you can see this what name. I can't really tell which is which. So I cannot add an alias. I can say what's as. So instead of name, call this column account name, for example. And instead of name, I'll call this as what sales rep underscore rep. And instead of region name, right? Instead of name, I'll call this as region. When I run this now, it should update appropriately. So account name, sales rep, and what region, right? So now you can specify what you want to see. So it depends on what's your end goal, right? What you want to see. So I hope that
Okay.
answers the question.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.